and share my screen. I pulled up the wrong one. Hold on. We need the right document. Loading catalogs. So that's what we're working on now. We're going to load our catalogs into the system. So again, my name's Nancy Morin. So anyone who's joining us to listen in. And we'll start with importing catalogs. Okay, so when we talk about the catalogs, we are talking about importing static catalogs here. So just keep that in mind. We'll describe the different methods of loading the catalogs. We'll load a SIF catalog, and I'll explain subscriptions. So, catalog import overview. So one way to get your catalogs, and probably the most common, is to get them through the network. So you get network catalog subscriptions where the supplier uploads the catalog through the Ariba network, and that's used by your organization. The other way, and I'm going to jump down to the bottom, is static catalogs. Okay, and these are loaded manually into the SAP buyer side. So they're loaded directly into the buyer side. Okay, so you have a network subscription and you have your static catalog. Either way, they look the same, they're static catalogs. The third is a generated subscription. And as I mentioned earlier today, you can create a subscription from your contract compliance document. We'll do contract compliance on Friday, and that's when we'll talk about the generated subscriptions. But we do mention it here as well, just so you're aware that it is a way to get catalog items into the catalog. It's another way. Hide this. Okay, so when we say a subscription, it's just the definition of the process for getting the content into SAP Ariba. It's not like a subscription to a magazine. It's not. It's just the process used for getting that Ariba catalog into the system. That subscription specifies the properties of the catalog. Okay, so unique name, supplier name, name of the content file. Option to skip approval process is a choice, and you can automatically activate. You can also have an option to display the subscription so you can see what's in it and whether the content file items has multiple suppliers. You can import a file with multiple suppliers. One of the most important things here is to use a best practice on creating the name of the subscription. So it's usually the name underscore supplier name, XLS. Okay, so whatever you do, you want to make sure it's a good standardized name. So again, you have Ariba Network subscriptions, you have your static subscription, and the contract subscription. This is that generated subscription coming from a contract. We will talk to that in the contract compliance module, and we're covering that on Friday. The Ariba network provides a connection point for buyers and suppliers on the internet, right? The Ariba network is that middle point between the two sides, between the buyer and the supplier. Okay, that's where everybody meets. Buyers come in on their side, suppliers come in on their side. From here, the supplier can put up a catalog on the Ariba network, and then buyers download that catalog. Okay, and they pull it into their procurement application. As long as the content's good, it can go through and you can send them for approval. So the supplier goes into the Ariba network through supplier.ariba.com. That's their side of the Ariba network. They upload the catalog. The buyer goes into the Ariba network through buyer.ariba.com, and they subscribe to the catalog that has been uploaded. They say, yes, I want this. Within SAP Ariba Procurement, this is your customer-owned SAP Ariba Cloud website. There is a job called the Ariba Network Full Synchronization task. And that job runs and it imports the subscribed catalog from the supplier. So you'll acquire your catalog from the Ariba network, right? You'll then go you'll get that. You'll then run the full Ariba network full subscription synchronization task to synchronize it. It reads the information and it brings it in. You use the task initially during implementation, but after its initial run, you can set it up to run a certain amount of time and will import the product catalogs. So the buyer has catalog responsibilities as well as the supplier. So the buyer goes out and determines which catalogs they want. Okay, they determine the content, choose the catalog types based on what suits you best, and decide who will manage the catalog content. So does the buyer maintain some of the content, or does the supplier maintain it all? Where is this content maintained? Suppliers have to register on the Ariba network. They create, maintain, and upload their catalogs there. They will have a template from they will have a standard catalog template, but they will also have requirements from the buyer. Okay, so what are the buyer rules? So for example, you may require that all catalogs have the unit of measure each. That's the only unit of measure you will accept from everything. So you can set that up as a requirement. And then maintaining and refreshing the catalogs. This is the task. It can be run manually, or you can set it to run automatically. Usually you'll run it manually the first time to kick it off, and then you would set it to run manually. The default setting is for it to auto sync every 12 hours, but you may want to change this based on your business needs. And once it runs, oh, excuse me, when it runs, it will automatically subscribe to that catalog. But you can also get your static subscriptions by getting the content from a supplier. So a supplier could send it to you in any shape or form that gives you the file. So email, FTP, file share, DVD, CD. And then you download it, you upload it. You can also download manually from the Ariba network. Okay? Or from the supplier website. But once you get the file, you manually put it into the system. The user must belong to the customer catalog manager group to import any catalog. There are actually two different methods for loading static catalogs. Today we'll talk to Catalog Manager. Okay, so you'll see all the information about that. And it has the rules you see here. It has the standard validation, catalog views, kits, partial items, hierarchy, etc. Content management system has some of that, and it also has additional benefits such as validation, cleansing, enrichment, extended SIF fields, item ranking, special identification, and catalog reports. It's just a different way to import the catalogs. Catalog Management System, or CMS, basically is an enhanced catalog framework. Okay, it still has validation, so constraints are implied catalog field based on requirements. You can specify if values are mandatory or optional. It also does the cleansing, so it'll clean things up. And on the enrichment, it updates catalog fields based on specific conditions. One of the things that it really does here, it also satisfies some of the need for BME CAT, okay, in those extended SIF fields. But it's important to note that CMS is a free customer self-service feature. The support is limited to education and basic configuration for the use of those extended SIF fields. Okay, so CMS specific consulting and configuration is available. Okay, so the functionality is you cannot have, there's limitations. You cannot have CXML. Okay. You cannot create catalog rules with parametric data fields. And for BME CAT items, cannot include tiered pricing, multiple images and thumbnails, and related items. So there are some limitations. But we are really talking about Catalog Manager today. So let's talk about how that works. So I import my catalog. The catalog is validated. It checks to see that it meets all the requirements. If there are errors, it'll ask what type of error. Does the buyer fix the error? Or do we email the supplier to have them fix the error, who then fixes it, and we get a new catalog and we import it? If there's no errors, okay, you can optionally look at a comparison report to see the differences. Does it require approval? If it's going to skip approval, it'll go straight to live. If it needs to be approved, it'll wait for the approval and then it'll go live. This is the catalog manager page, right? So you have your catalogs, and here you click import new catalog to bring in a new catalog. Then you fill out your fields. You have to specify if it's a new subscription or it's an update to one that you already have. Okay. You choose the supplier. You name the subscription. And then you can choose to skip approval, yes or no. Activate automatically, yes or no. And does it have multiple suppliers in the file? You then click on select file, and choose your file. hit import, and it brings it in. Once it's in, you can look at the subscription, the catalogs, and you'll see the supplier name. It'll give you the version, and you can click in this to see the details of the subscription. It displays if there are any errors. It lets you know if it's activated, if it's been deactivated, what the history is, and if there's a little red exclamation point, which you probably can't see on any of these, it would tell you there's errors. Here you can click to display all the items, so it will tell you what's in the catalog. You can search for catalogs, so you can search for specific subscriptions. And right from here, you could compare version. You can use the buttons to compare versions, send something for approval, activate it, deactivate it. Once an item is deactivated, you can delete that version. You can delete subscriptions. They must be deactivated. You can preview or delete a preview. When you import, there is an import toolbar pictured here. Okay, there's step 1, step 2, step 3, so the buttons are organized. What you do is once you import it, you can click on the view, a catalog just imported, or you can click on the version link. Either one will bring you here. And I'll show it to you when we import the catalog. Okay, let's go over here and log in. Okay, and once it decides to load the page, all right, I'll go to Manage Core Administration. I'm a full system administrator, so I see more, but a catalog manager would just see Catalog Manager, right? I can find it here, or I can find it on this page. If I click, I can click here, or I can click Catalogs here. Either one brings you to the same place. I personally tend to go through the left menu. Okay, so now that I'm here, I'll slide over a little so you can see the whole thing. Let me hide this so it's not covering anything. All right, so here's my catalog manager, my supplier, my subscription name, my version. Is it activated? And my list, and then all my buttons across the bottom. Right now, we're going to import a new catalog. I'll select to create a new catalog subscription. I'll choose my supplier. And I'm doing Ariba Supplier Education Test. So once I type that in, I click Search and I click Select. I have to name my subscription. So this is my initials, LHD, May 2018. Okay, so it's for Learning Hub delivery. So this way I can find it again later. I'm going to skip approval and activate automatically, and then I select my file. So I go to my catalog file, I browse, and training, here we go. So it's my lab 3.1 that I'm using for this, and I import my file. So I'll let it take a minute to think, and I'll check quick for any questions. Okay, so view non-catalog just imported came up. I didn't see anyone typing, so we'll move to this. And here's my tools. It's broken down by clean data, analyze my data where I can compare or view or preview, and then go live where it tells me when it's activated. If I had any errors, I would see it here. I could edit here, so you can see my items, and then revalidate. It lets you filter, check the catalog hierarchy, the unit of measure. So there's a few things, right? But this catalog has been imported. When I go to catalog home, I could look for NM and hit search. And actually, it was right here. I didn't have to do that. But it's thinking, there's my subscription. Tells me it's currently activating. There's 2 items, and it's version 1. So now let's talk about the files. So there are 2 types of files that you can import. One is our own, which is catalog interchange format. This is easiest to use whenever you need to manually create a catalog file. The other, of course, is CXML, which is Commerce Extensible Markup Language. A lot of people use CXML, but it's designed specifically for e-commerce, but it's not easily human readable or editable. Okay. You can also find the SAP Ariba Catalog Format Reference Guide available in Connect or when you're in the system under Help. Okay, that describes both formats in detail. Okay, so when you're getting ready to do this, you'll have access to that guide, and it really does help. So when you're using a SIF catalog, suppliers are given instructions with an Excel template. Okay, so this is what it looks like. They put the information into the Excel template. Here's the top, here's the different columns, and then they transfer it into a SIF. This is the CXML file, obviously not as easy to read. You can, if you know what you're looking for, but not as simple. When you're loading the catalog, you have a choice to load everything. Okay, that'll replace everything that was there before. Items that do not exist in the new content will disappear. Right, so if I had a catalog with 20 line items and I load a new one in full mode with 10, I'll only see 10. However, you can also do an incremental load. So it'll replace only items that have been changed or updated. It'll add anything new. Okay. So it'll add new items, descriptions, or even delete items. Okay. So you can always export a full version of the catalog once you get in. So even though you've got different rounds, you can still export with all the incremental changes. What you do to change the load mode from full to incremental is in the CIF, you change load mode from F to I. In CXML, it goes from full to incremental. So basically, you're loading a new version instead of loading a whole brand new catalog. Pretty much. It'll still version it. But when you want to delete items from the catalog content, there's a couple different ways to do it. One is from the UI where you can delete a full subscription, delete a version of a subscription, or even go in and delete individual items from a catalog. But if you want to use the catalog import, you add delete to the field names, you set the load mode to incremental, and then you set the delete field in the catalog item to true. Okay, so the values are true, true, T1, or false, false, F1. The default would be false when you're looking at it. Okay, so here, once you deactivate a subscription, you can delete it. You can delete the version or the subscription. But it must be deactivated first. If you're deleting line items, you deactivate the catalog and then you delete the line item here. In the incremental load, so this is the CIF catalog. So I've got load mode incremental. Here's my field names. I think of them as column headers, right? So supplier, right? And then here's the supplier ID, here's the supplier part number. The last one as delete. You add that as the end of the last field name. And then the last item is false, false, because I want to keep these two, and this one's true, it'll be deleted. So let's actually look at a CIF catalog file. So let's pull up a file. So over here, I have one for Schaefer Office. We'll make it a little bigger. This way we can all really see it. So the load mode here is full, right? And the supplier ID domain is done. That determines this supplier number, the supplier ID, the expectation for the supplier ID. And then we have the field names, which are like column headers. So here's your supplier ID, here's your supplier ID, supplier part number, and so on, right? Now here we see commas in a row with blank. So it's just those fields would be blank. So if I worked backwards, my classification is here. And then, no, that's my price. There's no classification. And then before price, I have no URL, no supplier URL, and no manufacturer name. Gives the lead time as 0, unit of measure as box, The unit price is 3.2. And so the SPSC code, the item description, goes all the way back to Rayovac. Then we're to the manufacturer part number, supplier part number, and supplier. Okay, so you can see that it's relatively easy to set this up and read it. So some of the questions we ask at this point, I've just explained the field names, but can you have a different currency? Yes, you can set up different currencies in one catalog, right? You can put all that, change that information, and you would find all the details on how to do that in that file I mentioned earlier, which is terrible with the exact names, and I want to give it to you right. The SAP Ariba Catalog Format Reference Guide. So it would define all those fields for you and what values need to be there. So any questions on importing catalogs? Jump over, actually, typing. Okay, great. So let's talk about validation and errors. So there are two types of validation. Syntactic. So is everything formed correctly? Okay, so it must be syntactically correct. And the next word is semantic. Okay, is it compatible with your catalog standards? So you have validation rules, and they can be at the global level or supplier specific. These are constraints that you've defined. So for example, I said unit of measure must equal each. I require that you give me a lead time. I require the classification code and the price. So I can say that those things have to be there or I won't even accept the catalog. It'll fail. This is the catalog validation rules are found under Catalog Manager as well. And here we're looking at it. And when you click on actions, you can edit the rule or add a supplier rule. When you edit the rule, you can go in and decide, is it the different things? So it has to be in either shelf or aisle or product when it comes in. I can add a supplier specific rule. So Schaefer Office is required to have their expression, basically their commodity code within this range. When it fails validation, you get that little exclamation point next to the version letting you know, and it tells you in the status that there's a validation error. You click on the version and you can see how many errors and what the error was. So it'll tell you. So if my validation rule said that it's required, something's required and it's missing, it'll say the value for the required field unit of measure is missing. So it'll tell me in that summarized view. So you set up all these rules. Suppliers on the Ariba network can punch in and check your validation rules. They can download your validation rules, and they can even view validation errors. So if you're subscribing to a catalog out on the Ariba network, the supplier can go and take a look and make sure that they're following the rules. They'll even receive notification when catalogs fail, and they can view the catalog validation status. They can only view their little window. Okay, so here's an example. They go out, they choose the supplier, and they can view the validation rules. They can punch in and just see the rules. So let's take a look at those validation rules and upload a couple of files. That will probably break. That's the whole point. Okay, so let's go back over here, and I'm in Catalog Manager. So now I just go to Validation Rules, Catalog Validation Rules. That's why I like the left-hand menu, because I can be in something and still get there. And here's all the different rules. Okay, we're going to scroll down and look at unit of measure. Right? I can edit that rule, or I can add a supplier rule. So let's add a supplier rule. I have to specify the supplier. And I'm looking for Ariba Administrative Education Test. And I say that the regular expression, right, for the unit of measure is equal to EA. So when I import a catalog for Ariba Education Supplier Test, it must have the unit of measure set as EA. So let's go and find the file. So we'll go to Catalogs. And this time we'll do it as an incremental load. So I'll pull my file that's an incremental load. I'll go to Import New Catalog. When I get here, I'm going to use an existing catalog subscription. I choose my supplier, Ariba Test Supplier, and then I go and choose my subscription. So I'm going to update the one I did earlier, and I'll select my file, and I'll browse, and I'll choose 7.1, and I'll import that. And it'll sync. Okay, so let's view the catalog we just imported. And I got an error. So it tells me I have one error. And down here it tells me what it is. It says the unit of measure must be set to each. I can immediately email the errors. I can delete items with errors. I even get a suggested fix. When I click here on the edit, I can make a change. This is the line item with the problem, but I want to see what the problem is, right? So I can show additional fields. So when I click that, I can go down here and add unit of measure. So whatever field it is, I can see what the problem is. And in this case, they sent it as pack. Now, I may want to go back to them and have them fix it, or I could go in and edit it scroll down and cross my fingers that it works. Change this to EA because for some reason, the first time I try this, yeah, it does that. So I can return to the previous page. Happens every time the first time I do it. And then usually the second it works. I don't know why. It's probably my computer. Okay, so my unit of measure is now each. This is my revalidation tool. I can go here and revalidate the catalog. So it'll go back and it'll check it. And now when I go to errors, there won't be any. Let's go back to my validation rule. And we'll take it out. We'll delete the supplier rule. And I'll upload the same file. Go back to catalogs. And I'll import a new catalog. Skip approval, automatically activate. And sorry, I want to use an existing. So Ariba, select, choose the same subscription, select my file, browse. We'll choose 7.1 again. And we'll import. And there's no errors. And there's the 2 items we just brought in. See, and this time it accepted pack because I took out that validation rule. So your validation rules will stop things from being imported. So you can set rules as to what you want in your catalogs. So are there any questions? Because we have reached the end of the class. I think you're just sleepy because it's the end of the day for you. I'll let you finish typing. And of course, there are playbacks available, live sessions each month, additional topics on video. And thank you all for coming. Please fill out my survey. No problem. And thank you. Have a good